Who are you?
Whoever you want me to be.
Don't say I never gave you anything.
It's feeling epic.
3 words. 8 letters.
I remember everything.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Previously on Teen TV. I'm Jillian Banani.
And I'm Claire Wojciechowski.
Welcome back, Claire.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be back.
I know, new studio space.
I know,
By
very
that,
exciting.
I mean I'm in a new apartment. Very exciting, but same old bookshelf.
We love the bookshelf. It's consistent.
Yeah, we are back at the bookshelf today with a very special episode, if I do say so myself. We are talking all about abandoned storylines.
Yes, we are. All those storylines that got started that looked like they were going somewhere and then they just sort of stopped short and fell off a cliff.
Fell off a cliff is a really good way to put it. You invested yourself into these storylines. You were ready to go. You were excited. And then all of a sudden, we just pretend like it didn't even happen.
Exactly. Yes.
I feel like this happened a lot during the 22 episode seasons that we used to get in these shows.
I was going to say, I think they had so much time to fill. 22 episodes is a lot of story to tell. And so they started some things and then, trying to fill that space and then just sort of realized, oh, this isn't working. We got to move on. We got to switch gears.
Which, to be fair, I do get that. I mean, that is a lot of time to fill. I feel like, too, there's always, a multitude of reasons of, why they just decide to cancel these storylines. They do talk about this a lot in the OC book. If you haven't read that, we also have an episode on it, so go back and listen. All about the oral history of the OC. But the creators talked about this a lot, and they mention a lot of the time of we're throwing a lot of storylines at the wall, and a lot of times the fans are not receptive to it. They're not invested. So, we just decided to write it out and forget about it.
Yeah, they write themselves into a corner sometimes where they make someone so irredeemable or they make things so convoluted, and then they're just sort of how do I untangle this? How do I move forward? And sometimes the best move or the easiest move is not to move forward, just to jettison this entire storyline. Yes.
Just move on.
Just be never mind. We're forget about it.
Pretend it never happened. Forget that in your brain.
Yes.
And then it's now as we rewatch things over and over and over again, we're we have not forgotten. We will never forget.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that this is something that we noticed, you said, a lot more in those older series where you weren't rewatching as much because, they weren't on streaming. And so people were a little more forgiving, or they just weren't remembering because they weren't watching the same things over and over again.
I know. I feel like I really started to realize this more when I was rewatching on my DVDs. I was really big on buying DVDs for all these shows, One Tree Hill, Gossip Girl, OC. And then I was what happened to that person? That guest star just up and went away with barely any explanation. I feel like this does happen a lot with guest stars.
Yes.
They come in for a purpose, and maybe we maybe the audience is receptive to them and they build more storylines, and then they get on a new show or something happens with a contract thing. So then they get written off the show. So I feel it happens a lot in a guest star thing.
Yeah. I also think that especially a lot of these shows have big casts and lots of storylines happening at the same time. And so sometimes there's just not enough space, even though they're trying to fill these 22 episodes with multiple storylines. When it comes time to wrap them up, they're oh, we don't have enough time to really flesh out this new thing that we started. So we just got to get rid of it and focus on the existing characters, the existing storylines that have a longer term sort of payoff.
That is such a good point. Or I feel too, if fans aren't receptive to that character, they're
sure.
Never mind. We got to write them out. We had a plan. We got to cancel that plan.
Yeah.
People hate this character. We're done with them.
Plenty of characters who have just disappeared because the fans did not take a liking to them.
I can think of a lot of them on the OC.
Yeah. The OC, One Tree Hill.
Gossip Girl.
Oh,
I feel too.
I made a whole list of people on Gossip Girl, and I'm what happened to them? What happened to them? And I'm I don't remember because I guess they just weren't working, and so we're just never mind.
Bart killed them all. Also, who's Chuck's mom? I'm still confused on that.
Oh my god.
When I was looking into this, I was should I go down the Chuck's mom route? But then I'm like, it wasn't really abandoned. It was just talked about over and over
Right.
again. But I'm like still confused
We
on
thought
who the mom is.
It was Elizabeth Hurley for a second, and then it was like the
I
woman at the
know.
grave, and we still don't know to
That
this day.
woman
Do we
at the
know?
grave. So
Oh,
good.
God.
Well, there is a difference between, I feel like, abandoned storylines and then storylines that maybe they just like flipped on their head.
Yeah, when they sort of retcon
it's like, oh, we
things
thought
or-
Bart was dead. Bart's alive.
Yeah.
Oh, we thought Chuck's mom was dead. Chuck's mom might be alive, and there might be 4 of them. We don't know.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's like there is a difference.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about some abandoned storylines
Yes.
today. Should we get into it?
I mean, we can get into, so we each picked our top 3 that we're going to discuss a little deeper today.
Yeah.
Should I kick us off?
Yeah, I want you to kick us
Okay,
off.
well,
Let's do it.
Speaking of Gossip Girl, we're going to talk about Scott on Gossip Girl.
Love it. I'm obsessed. This is one of my favorite abandoned storylines.
So Scott is the long lost love child of Rufus and Lily, because we love nothing more than like a long lost child on these shows, particularly between two characters who have romantic history and their children have romantic history. So it complicates things for Dan and Serena. There's so much back and forth about there's a secret. Bart knows Lily's secret. And then we're like, what is the secret? And then it turns out that it's Scott. And then his parents are lying about who he is. And they say, oh, he's not the kid. You know, his older brother is the one and he died.
Oh, right. I forgot about the older brother
Yes.
part of this.
So at first they track down Scott and they meet with the parents, the adoptive parents, and they're like, no, sorry, it was Andrew, I
Yeah.
think, and he died in an accident. And
so Lily and Rufus are thinking their
son is
child
dead.
is dead. Yeah.
Right. Turns out that's not true. Scott is very much alive, and his older brother did pass away. Very sad. But then, once the truth comes out, Scott decides that he's going to lie about it, and he's going to keep the truth from Lily and Rufus for reasons that, like, I don't really understand.
They were just dragging this out.
Right?
Like, they were, like, really... it takes so long.
Like, the bulk of season 2 has
Yeah.
this secret hovering over it. And then Vanessa finds out, and he convinces Vanessa to lie to, like, her best friend and his family. And then eventually, like, the truth does come out. It's weird. And then Scott just kind of is like, oh, well, okay. And then leaves. And
that's it.
Yeah, by season 3, episode 5, he is gone. He is briefly mentioned in the Thanksgiving episode. They're like, oh, Scott's having dinner and wherever with his family. But that's it.
Yeah.
We never-
barely even a mention. Like,
No.
it's not like Rufus is like, oh, I'm going to go visit Scott for the
Nope.
weekend. Like, I need to get out of the Upper East Side. No, nothing. Barely mentioned. Like, it is so bizarre.
Yes, he is gone at the beginning of season 3, and he does not return ever, not for 6 seasons, not for the wedding of his 2 half-siblings, because his
I know.
half-siblings marry each other in the finale.
Well,
Scott's not there.
So yeah, we're talking about Dan and Serena
Yes.
getting married. But do you think that that's why they wanted to stop with the mention of Scott? Because it's a little weird then that Dan and Serena are getting married when their parents share a child? Like, I mean, it's fine. There's nothing like
there's no blood between them.
exactly.
And
like
it's not like they were
children are
raised
going
with-
to turn out blue, but like I guess it is kind of like
It's a little uncomfortable to
all in the family. Like they
Sure.
share a sibling, a half sibling.
Yes. I mean, it happens on daytime soap operas all the time. Maybe Gossip Girl
Yeah.
was like, it's too much for us.
I just wonder, like, I'm just thinking in my head of like what were the reasons of why like we couldn't even mention Scott at all, and why
Yeah.
they wanted us to forget about Scott.
Yeah, they just-
and I think it might be because of Dan and Serena.
That would make sense to me, because they were, for whatever reason, an endgame couple that were on and off throughout
Well,
the many seasons.
We've talked about that. a
Oh,
bit.
yes. We don't have to
Yeah.
rehash it today.
Well, don't get me going. I might. Yeah, I do just think it's a bummer because I did enjoy the storyline, and like I did love Lily and Rufus in Gossip Girl. Like I love their history. I love all the backstory we got with them, and then when we find about this child, you're like, oh my god, like, and you guys are meant to be. So I did love this storyline, and then it just sucks that like it just like completely went away. I thought that was a big bummer, and I get it. Maybe it was hard to like get that actor to come back again. Maybe he was doing something else, whatever. But I think that there are ways in Gossip Girl where you could have just like mentioned it. Like Jenny's off the show for many seasons, and she's still mentioned. And it
Yeah.
like feels natural. It works in the flow of the show.
Yeah, he could have been hanging out with Jenny, also his sister,
Yeah.
or Eric, who is also his brother.
Exactly. He would have fit in great with them, I feel
Yeah, the three of them
like.
could have been a cute little trio and been like, we're sad and abandoned and whatever.
Exactly. The Upper East Side isn't
Yeah.
for us.
So one way I think that would have been interesting if they had kept him around
Oh, fun.
is that like I think it could have been fun if he had dated Blair.
Oh, I kind of love that.
Right? Like a little bit of
Yeah.
opposites attract, but like not in like the Dan Humphrey way. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it could have like caused some drama with Serena. I was like, or he could have dated Chuck. Either one.
Oh,
because that would have been really fun. We didn't,
That would have been fun.
date someone in the group, really throw them for a loop there.
Yeah. Well, I think I thought he was going to maybe date Vanessa at one point,
right,
and they
because
didn't
that's sort
do
of
that.
what they hinted at because he was
They kept trying to build stuff up with Vanessa, and then they're like, never mind.
I mean, yeah, he was pretending to be someone else with her.
Yeah.
Or I think if you want to go the other direction, maybe he like wants to get revenge on Lily and Rufus for abandoning him
Yeah.
and robbing him of all this fame and money, and so he teams up with Georgina to get revenge. Like that could have been really
that's my
interesting.
favorite out of these scenarios.
Okay.
I think that would have been fun because I do think it makes sense of like maybe there's a little anger there. Like he's also like still a teenager
Yeah.
when they discover him. Like, and you find out your parents are these like rich Upper East Siders with like all this
Yes.
money. I mean, yeah, I would have maybe a little bit of resentment. So I like him teaming up with Georgina. That would have been good.
Yeah,
I'm all about that.
missed opportunity.
I mean, dating someone in the group would have been like fun too, but any excuse to bring Georgina.
Yeah, I
into
know,
it.
right?
I love it. That's fun. All right. So speaking of abandoned half siblings, my first abandoned storyline is also in that theme. It is Eve from Dawson's Creek.
okay, Eve.
So if you don't remember Eve,
How could you forget?
I mean, Eve swoops into town in the first episode of season 3. She's like literally in the first scene. She comes in as a temptress to Dawson. I mean, her name is Eve.
Yeah.
Like it's quite obvious.
It's heavy-handed, but it's fine.
And Dawson falls victim to her crimes, of course. It's all her fault. Anyway, so Eve stirs up some trouble in the town. But then we later find out that she is the half-sibling to Jen.
Yeah.
Which is so wild. This is a huge revelation. And then we discover this information and it is then never discussed again, never brought up. Jen and Eve never have a conversation.
No, they never like speak.
And it is just so bizarre. There's no reason of why they needed to even bring in this half-sibling storyline. Like, it kind of stirs up a conversation between Jen and her mom of, like, where Jen kind of learns that, like, it was good that her mom sent her to live in Cape Side. And she's, like, living a better life. But, again, I think it could have done that without having this random half-sibling that is... I just don't understand why you build up this whole storyline to then have it go nowhere. Like, you could have just kept Eve as, drawing Dawson away from Joey, because that really was, like, the purpose of her at first. Like, Dawson is, infatuated with her and, then decides he no longer wants Joey and he's done with that and they need to move on. And he just, wants to just have some fun and not be so serious. And Eve is kind of like the person who does that for him.
Right. She's just trying to seduce him.
And stealing from him, too.
Yeah, that's true.
So fun,
Yeah. She's just a good time girl.
Fun. Yeah, good time, Eve.
She had that, like, short, like, white blonde pixie cut. Yeah.
I mean, everything she says is, like, oozed in, like, sexuality. Like, it's so much. Like, it is, like, way too ridiculous.
Yeah.
She's also, like, in her young 20s, hanging out at the high school. Wild. But, you could have just left it at that.
Yeah.
Like, she served a purpose.
She did, but, like, the whole her being a half-sibling thing feels extra unnecessary because the mom and dad are not around.
Exactly.
Like, Jen is living in Cape Side with Grams. Like,
Yeah.
her parents are mentioned here and there, but we don't see the parents. And so then to have this, like, surprise sibling storyline, like, doesn't make sense to me when you're not there to see the fallout with the parents, with the mom who made the mistake. Like, she shows up for an episode or two, but like, she's not a regular cast member. So like, why do we care what she did in her past?
And like, we don't see the mom with Eve either. Like, Eve, we never see her with the family. Like, Dawson discovers that Eve is Jen's half sibling, right? Like,
I think I forget. Honestly, I forget. It's just like, and then she just leaves. She just leaves Cape Side, and we're just like,
never to be seen again.
Nope. And we never mention her.
Meanwhile, she went to Cape Side to try and find her mom.
Right. Yes.
So that's the only reason, like, why she's there too. We discover. But it just, it was just so frustrating on so many levels because there is this whole buildup of it. There's this big reveal. Jen is angry, like all this stuff. And then it's just like literally never talked about.
Nope.
Not once. Graham's isn't bringing her up. They're not inviting her to Thanksgiving.
No.
And like, don't you feel kind of bad for her? Like, she was stealing from Dawson. She's clearly like not doing great.
Yeah, if you're stealing from a teenage boy.
And like Jen's family is rich. Like, the parents are rich.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this keeps me up at night.
I mean, listen, knowing what we know about Jen's family, maybe Eve was better off.
Good point.
Because the mom only shows up. She shows up then. She shows up, you know, with when Graham has cancer briefly, and then that's it. But like, when Jen dies, we don't see those parents.
I mean, that's true.
So like, maybe Eve dodged a bullet.
But I would have liked to see Eve at the breakfast table with Jen and Graham's. Like, I would have liked to see maybe just a couple episodes of her like bonding with Jen. Two bad girls hating their parents.
Oh, that would have been fun.
Like, that would have been fun. Like, I just think we could have like gotten a couple episodes like that. And then Eve could have gone on her way and like moved on. And then maybe they mention her of like, oh, I got a letter from Eve. She's doing great in Costa Rica at the retreat.
So specific.
Can't you just see Eve in Costa Rica?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Eve surfing the waves.
Yeah. Frolicking in her bikini.
Exactly.
Seducing the tourists.
Yeah. She doesn't do that anymore now, Claire.
Oh,
she's doing well now that, you know, Graham's made breakfast for her a couple times.
She has the love of a family.
She's doing better. Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad Eve is doing better in your version of events.
Yeah. So I really do feel like this was one of the worst half-sibling storylines we've ever experienced. And I don't know why this happened this way. I feel like Dawson's Creek, they had a big turnover on like showrunners and writers, I think, from season 2 to 3. So I wonder, I feel like they like threw that at the wall and then we're like, what really further are we going to explore with this? We need to go full into Joey and Pacey. And don't hate that.
No, worked out for the best.
So I'm okay with it. I still love Dawson's Creek season 3, but it was wild of all this buildup.
Yeah.
There's nothing. No payoff.
I hear you.
I wonder, like, as an actor, how you must feel. Because, like, this girl, I don't know who the actress who plays Eve is, but, like, you get the script in the mail, and you're like, oh, my God, I'm Jen's half-sibling? Like, I'm a main character's half-sibling? Like, I made it. Like, I'm going to be on this show.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to bring me in for more episodes. Like, I'm more than just this, like, sexual girl that they brought me on to be. Like, I'm getting layers. This is so great. And then you're like, you never see another script again. Like, that was it.
She just evaporates.
Yeah. Like, that's got to feel so shitty.
Yeah, it does suck. That's unfortunate.
Pour one out for these actors.
Yeah, these half-sibling actors.
If you're an actor, and I'll say this, if you're an actor and it's revealed that you're a half-sibling of a character, don't think that you're going to be in more episodes. Okay, that just might be the kiss of death. Hope that you don't get that storyline.
I have to agree.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, based off of evidence.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so another storyline that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Not a half, well, I guess, a half sibling.
Yeah.
A long lost child, a love child.
A love child.
Is Lindsay on the OC.
Love.
So
I mean, this is a good one. Yeah.
Lindsay is a good one. She had some good moments.
Well, I mean, I want to be clear. I don't love Lindsay.
No, but
I
like,
love this. This is a good abandoned storyline. I feel like I've talked about Lindsay a lot on this. I just want to be clear. I don't love her. Okay.
No. Lindsay comes in season 2. She's one of the many new love interests that are introduced. She's this nerdy girl. They pair her up with Ryan. She's Ryan's new love interest, and they bond over being like really academically minded. And then it turns out that she is Caleb's illegitimate daughter from, you know, an affair he had 16 years ago.
Big reveal. This was a huge reveal. And I loved this. I was like, this makes sense because I don't like her just as Ryan's love interest. But bringing her in as Caleb's illegitimate love child, love that.
Oh, yeah. It causes...
Juicy, scandal, drama, love it.
It happens at the Christmas episode, which is fantastic. Great app.
Yeah.
But it affects Kiki. It affects Julie, who was married to Caleb at the time. It affects Seth because now he's got this other relative. And Ryan, of course, changes all the dynamics.
You are right. It does affect like every single character in this show.
Yeah. So it's like a good idea. But then as soon as they reveal that she's the like love child or whatever, they just sort of don't know what to do with her anymore.
Yeah.
And they try to like integrate her into the friend group. Like she goes out for a night with Marissa and Summer and gets drunk, and then Ryan's like, you poisoned her, and not realizing that Lindsay has some problems and wanted to get drunk of her own volition.
She's an illegitimate love child. Like, that's tough. That's a tough reveal.
Right. And so then after that, she's just like, it's too much, I gotta go. And she leaves town. Never to be heard from again. Never spoken of again.
Never mentioned.
Like, Caleb dies a few months later. She doesn't come back for that funeral.
Yeah.
Doesn't, like, as far as we know, she doesn't talk to Kiki. Like,
even like season 4 when Marissa is dead, like maybe bring her in then as like just a character that we kind of know, like just try and make her work then in that world. Like the show has already changed a lot. Like I get like as viewers, we didn't love Lindsay when she came on the scene because she was in between Ryan and Marissa.
Right.
Like, and Ryan actually seemed happy with her. And we were like, no, we can't have that. We need you back with Marissa.
Yeah, we need
tortured. You need to be cleaning up this girl.
Yeah.
But they could have just brought her back at some point.
Yeah. Well, or even keep her around. Like, I didn't think that she had the most chemistry with Ryan. Like, I never really bought them as a couple. Like,
no.
Because I was like, you're both like nerdy or whatever. But I just didn't really see it between them. But I thought it could have been fun, like, if she stuck around and, like, I don't know, maybe they bring Luke back and she dates Luke. Could be like really cute. Like, he's this like dumb little jock trying to be a better person, and she like is annoyed by him, but then falls for his charms or something. I don't know.
Well, I actually felt like her being Caleb's daughter was a good way to break Ryan and Lindsay up.
Yeah,
like,
because it's too weird.
Yeah, because it gets a little weird, and like Caleb hates Ryan, and she's trying to make a relationship with Caleb, her dad. So I just feel like that was a good device to like break Ryan and Lindsay up, but like have somebody still, you know, be able to stick around and be in the fray, and like have her date Luke, have her date freaking what's his name. Zach. Yeah. That could have worked. They're both a little nerdy.
Oh, yeah.
I
think the trouble is, too, is that they never, like, you never buy that she would be integrated into the friend group.
They had her too nerdy.
She's too nerdy.
We needed a makeover scene.
Well, she also just, like, doesn't seem like she comes in as, like, the new girl who doesn't have friends. And it's like, okay, but, like, does she have interests? Like, we don't know what she's interested in beyond, like... Oh, my God.
That's what they gave us. Like, it was tragic.
Yeah, they really did her no favors.
They
poor girl.
Kind of did. Like, I think that was the problem, where it was like, I think that if you're gonna have her do this like bigger storyline that like integrates her with every character in the show, you kind of needed to make her a little bit more likable and a little bit more being able to like fit into the world.
Yeah, she just wasn't quite meshing with the, like you said, the world of the show. Yeah, the group. Yeah, there was no obvious place for her to like insert herself in.
Yeah.
And they remedy that in later seasons, I think, with Taylor, and when she comes in as sort of the replacement. But this was quite not the right energy.
It wasn't. Poor Lindsay.
Yeah.
We wanted more for you.
We did. Sorry, girl.
I mean, the way that they just don't even mention her is cold-blooded.
Yeah.
Cold-blooded. It's so wild. I think it's so funny. I'm like, this was a major season 2 storyline that we spent many episodes
the
on.
first half of season 2. She's in every episode.
Yeah. So it was just like, wow.
Yep. And then just
build up for nothing.
Never heard of again.
Yeah. No takeoff. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a fun metaphor for it, but I can't. Anyways, moving on. So another abandoned storyline. This one has nothing to do with half siblings or guest stars. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring this one up. So I'm talking about Damon's powers on the Vampire Diaries.
Now, when you mentioned this to me, I had fully forgotten this.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it is it's definitely forgettable.
It was abandoned.
It was abandoned quite early on too. But basically, so in early season 1, Damon is able to like make fog and crows appear at his command. And then we never hear anything about this, see anything about it again. Like, specifically in the pilot, there is like a reoccurring like fog thing and crows too. And then it's like Damon appears. So it's like he made those things happen. There is even a line too where Stefan says, after the hello brother, Stefan says, crow's a bit much, don't you think? And Damon says, wait till you see what I can do with the fog.
Okay.
So like, assuming he has some form of like powers and is able to make this stuff happen.
But what good is it? What do those powers actually like?
Well, I assume that's why they just dropped it.
Exactly. So it was a thing in the book.
Okay.
So I think that they tried to like bring it in the TV show, and then they were like, what is this really doing? Let's, take this out.
Yeah.
It's just like not working. The fog's a bit much. I feel like they probably thought.
Yeah. The Hayes budget got to be too expensive.
But I kind of like it in the sense that, like, I think it adds to Damon's, like, bad boy, like, mystique a little bit. And I just think, like, it would have been fun if he had some powers and was,
Yeah.
a little... It doesn't work, ultimately, in, like, what they did do with the show and, like, how they became vampires, which we learn later on, and, like... and all that. But, like, isn't it fun to think about Damon having some powers?
It could be fun. Like, I mean, like, the fog could be like a distraction. It helps you get away from your enemies. I don't know. Or hide
the killing.
Hide the killing.
Well, I think that is what it was a lot in the first couple episodes of season 1. Like, because we're seeing all these people dying, and fog is always, like,
it's
surrounding
hiding
it.
his misdeeds and such.
Yeah.
I think that would have been fun. And also, like, if he has powers, then it stands to reason that all the vampires have powers. And then you get... like, who knows what they all can do? Like, you could watch them develop their powers as they become vampires. Like, Caroline figures out how to, I don't know, control the wind or something.
Yeah. Oh, that could be kind of fun. Fire.
Yeah.
Now they're superheroes.
Yeah. Well, didn't they do that in Twilight? Don't each of them have like a different power?
Yes, that like in Twilight, I think they have gifts, but not every vampire has
Maybe
gifts.
instead of calling them powers, we should call them gifts.
No, I like powers.
Yeah.
By powers, I mean gifts.
We know what you mean. The ability to control things.
Yeah, I just think that like it added a little bit to his mystique. But I mean, it's just kind of funny that how much did they spend on fog in these first couple of episodes? And then it's just like fog no more. No more powers. So yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Just a little something from the Vampire Diaries. I mean, I feel like people always kind of like bring up some stuff with like the Vampire Diaries, but I actually don't think the Vampire Diaries abandoned that much stuff.
No, they
stuck to their guns.
Yes, they are very good at tying things up, and circling back and revisiting old things from seasons past. They're pretty good at that. I never felt like unsatisfied. I don't think watching Vampire Diaries.
I feel like they really thought everything out, and I think too in a supernatural show you have to do that like a little bit more. So they're like, okay, if we're going to have a rule where a vampire, needs permission to enter somebody else's home, we need to stick with that the entire time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you need to stick with the rules of the world that you've created.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to get them on something, and I was like, this is about it, and it's only in the first couple of episodes, and it's probably before they even like had any test audiences or anything like that, and then they were like, this is just a bit much. We don't need to give them gifts as well. They're already vampires. But again, I love a little adding to Damon's bad boy mystique.
No, that's
we
a
love
fun one.
That leather jacket.
That's a fun one.
So
I'm going to keep it in the supernatural realm.
Okay, fine.
For my final
I love it.
abandoned storyline, which really is an entire abandoned show if you want to get technical.
Oh, fun. I don't know what this is.
So I am talking about Caleb from Pretty Little Liars and the entire Ravenswood spinoff.
This is going to be a spoiler for me.
Okay, well,
No, it's fine. I'm just
Honestly,
kidding.
It's really not.
I gotta say, I don't know if I'm gonna make it through Pretty Little Liars.
I don't blame you. It's a slog.
It's
a lot.
First of all, the acting is a struggle on that show. I'm sorry, I'm taking 2 seconds to talk about this. I'm binging Pretty Little Liars right now for the first time, and I'm on season 2. And I think if I would have watched this when it came out, I would love it, be into it, watching every week, like all that.
I think it's hard to watch as a binge because it's so absurd and it's so convoluted that like it's hard to process almost.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, I know this isn't A, and they keep thinking like that's A, and I'm like, I know that's not A. Like, and I just know we don't find out about A for like quite some time, so that's a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah, there's multiple A's technically.
I know that too.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stick with it, but
okay.
I'm just gonna say it is. A lot of these, I'm like, oh wow, like One Tree Hill, Gossip Girl. I'm like, that holds up so well.
Pretty Little Liars.
This one, no, this was definitely on cable. Like you can tell, you can tell.
This was a ABC Family / Freeform.
Yeah. So, but I'm gonna stick it out. I got to. Okay. Go back. Introduce your abandoned storyline again. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I'm talking about Caleb on Pretty Little Liars and the entire Ravenswood spinoff. So what happens in Pretty Little Liars, there's this creepy woman named Grunwald, Mrs. Grunwald, and she is like hinting that some of the stuff that's happening to the Liars is supernatural and not just that some of it is, mystical or what have you. Caleb ends up leaving town. He finds out that like he's trying to search for stuff about like his family and his history and his past. So he leaves Rosewood to go to this nearby town called Ravenswood. And while in Ravenswood, he like gets involved in this whole like weird supernatural thing with like these other young people, like these other high school students in the town. It's very bizarre. I honestly don't remember a lot of it.
Yeah.
But there's this whole suggestion that like he is star-crossed soulmates with this chick named Miranda who like dies and then is a ghost. It's so bizarre.
And we love Hannah and Caleb. What? We can't do that.
And he like, they don't break up when he goes there. Like he's still dating Hannah while in Ravenswood. But like Miranda is like just a friend, but like there's supposed to be a connection there. I don't know. It's all very bizarre. And then Ravenswood only lasts a season because it was not great.
Yeah.
It gets canceled. And so Caleb just goes back to Rosewood like nothing ever happened. Like they address it, like I think, and they're like, oh, you're back from Ravenswood. That was weird. But like, he doesn't really talk about it. There's no mention of the supernatural anymore. Like all that stuff that happened is just like swept under the rug. And like his relationship with Hannah doesn't even change. Like if we had seen the impact of like him being separated from her for months, him having this connection with this other girl for months, like that could have been so interesting to play out to give their relationship more dynamics. And instead it's just like, nope, like I was on a quick vacation for, 3 months, whatever. And now I'm back, back to a real life villain and not some like, undead villain.
Was he also like, catch me up on what happened with A these past few months?
Probably. And he's just back in it,
Oh my God. That is wild. I feel like, though, this happens a lot when they give a character a spinoff and then the spinoff fails.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, let's bring that character back in here. It gets very awkward.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and also like rules change kind of in the spinoff or the world, especially with supernatural stuff. I just feel like, sometimes like I get why you want to do a spinoff of a show if it's very successful, but I'm like, I feel like it ruins then some of the storylines in the original show.
Yeah.
And it just pisses me off.
It's hard to do well. Like this was a failed one. And we could do a whole app on spinoffs. That's a whole nother conversation.
Jess Mariano's spinoff
was the first one I thought of.
I mean, that was like so dumb. I'm sorry, but like
that weird backdoor pilot with the woman who later comes
and
back.
then it doesn't even like get picked up or go anywhere. No. And then we have Jess off the show.
Yeah.
Annoying.
Yep. I know.
Yeah. Poor Milo.
I know.
Milo deserved better.
Yeah. He's all right. He's done well for himself.
Yeah, he's doing just fine.
Yeah.
No, that's a good one though. I mean,
You'll see. I don't watch.
There's got to be a lot of abandoned storylines in Pretty Little Liars. Am I right?
I think like 90% of them, they're all abandoned. But that's the one that sticks out to me because it's the only one I can clearly remember. The rest, you should start making a list as you watch.
Oh yeah, that would be fun.
Yes.
I should do that.
And don't watch Ravenswood. You can just skip. It's one season, and it doesn't matter. So
I'm like, I'm barely gonna make it through.
I don't even know if Ravenswood is streaming anywhere. I got to be honest. Like Pretty Little Liars is on Max, but I don't even know if you can watch Ravenswood anywhere.
Probably not. I mean, they probably want you to forget about it. And
I
here we are
forget
talking about it. We're their worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, those failed spin-offs. Oof. They used to love to do a spin-off back in the day.
Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, it is not successful.
What do you think the most successful spin-off was of one of these shows?
For like teen shows?
Yeah.
Vampire Diaries had 2. They had one, the originals was a spin-off of Vampire Diaries, and then Legacies was a spin-off of both, sort of. I would say Melrose Place off of Beverly Hills 90210.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a good one. Yeah, that is probably the biggest one.
And it was, I think, because it was a different age group.
Yeah.
Like, it was a spinoff of a teen show, but the main character was he was like in college or like an older man who Kelly had a crush on. And then the spinoff was about him and his like 20-something friends.
Well, that's why I think Legacies is so good. In the sense that like, I like the original spinoff, but I do feel like it was smart to bring it back to the teen characters because we didn't get that in the originals.
No.
And then they were able to bring that back. So I do feel like Legacies, I think, is the best. I mean, obviously I love the originals.
Yeah.
But
Legacies is more closely.
I wanted the originals to
Vampire
stay
Diaries.
in the Vampire Diaries.
Oh, you wanted them to be in the same world?
Yeah, I wanted Klaus full-time cast member of the Vampire Diaries.
Oh, I mean, I liked the originals.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It was fun.
Yeah.
No, I did like it. Well, that they say a lot of the vampire rules they abandon in the originals that they came up with.
Yeah, they do. Because it's a different.
It's too hard.
The tone is different for the originals as a show.
Anyways,
what is our final abandoned storyline for the day?
So the final abandoned storyline is from Friday Night Lights.
Okay.
It might not be what you're thinking. I feel like people are going to think I'm going to be talking about season 2, the murder plot. That was fully fleshed out, you guys. That was not abandoned, okay? We fully, that was resolved in my opinion.
Okay.
And they just didn't want to bring it up again.
Okay, sure.
Producer Jessie disagrees, but that's all right.
I feel like though that
They resolved it, but you still can't just like pretend it didn't
that
happen.
Landry didn't murder somebody. Yeah. Well, they wanted to pretend season 2 never
Yeah,
happened.
they did. That's fair.
Okay, so my abandoned storyline is from season 1. And it is with Lila Garrity. And she finds out that her dad is cheating on her mom. And she proceeds to completely destroy the car dealership that he owns. Like, I am talking like major damage to cars. And then at the end, fully rams her car into the building.
Wow.
Like, we're talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage. This happens at the end of an episode. And it is never heard about or talked about again. So I'm going into this being like, oh, big cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, what's going to happen?
What's the fallout going to be?
Yeah, exactly. What are the consequences of you completely destroying your dad's car dealership that like everyone in town also knows?
Right.
No consequences, not talked about, nothing. And like, I think it could have just been like one quick scene of like, we see the car dealership getting repaired. I don't know, like something. The dad talking to her about it. Like, it just felt like this big moment and like a big production thing to do for it to just go absolutely nowhere. And if you wanted to show that Lila's like not doing great and kind of like really struggling, like show it in a different way. Like have her like yelling, into the night and have her
throw a pool chair. Like
exactly. Like scream at something. Like I just feel like there were so many other ways, or even have her just kind of like go in and like throw trash everywhere, like kind of destroy the place a little bit. But like all the damage that this did for it not to be talked about again was like so crazy to me.
Yeah.
And I have not forgotten it since I saw this when it aired on TV as I was watching this like live every week.
Oh my God. It just feels like a missed opportunity because like then you could have so much, like fallout afterwards. Like how's she going to get punished? Like what's that going to do for her future? Like it could be so like fertile ground sort of for more storyline, and they just didn't take that route.
Or even if like you didn't want to like take the route of like, oh, she's in trouble with her parents. Like you could have done the route of like everyone in town heard about what she did and everyone thinks she's like super crazy now and like going off the deep end and she's unwell and like, did you heard about what happened with Lila? Like, I don't want to be her friend anymore. I'm scared. Does she need to be like medicated? Like, does she need to go to rehab? Like, just like have the rumor mill, you know, go around a little bit. Like something. I wonder if there was like a deleted scene of at least like her dad talking to her about it. And then they were like, let's just delete it. Like, I mean, there are so many characters in Friday Night Lights. That I feel like I'm sure there's just so many deleted scenes and they wrote so much stuff that like we never saw. But yeah, I just thought it was like very interesting. Or maybe they literally wrote it and was like they just wanted to show like she's pissed off and that was it. You know, that's how they wanted to show she was pissed off. I don't know.
We gotta ask those writers to respond.
I know. I have been listening to the Friday Night Lights podcast that like some of the actors are doing from it. I haven't gotten that episode yet, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
I need to listen and see what they think about it. But yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot I could talk about from Friday Night Lights probably. I will say, though, I think Friday Night Lights can get away with a lot of stuff because the seasons are only during, like, football season. So you have months that happen, like, in between seasons. So it's like you could have a couple just be together who you had no idea they were, like, even going to be together. And suddenly they're, like, already in a relationship. So there was, like, a lot that they could do. And it's like, look, I could bring up a lot about season 2. The murder. We got Santiago, that Buddy basically almost adopted and was living with him. This, you know, kid who he like rescued from jail, like, and put on the football team. We never hear from him again after season 2. But I think a lot of that had to do with the writer's strike.
Okay,
so season 2 of Friday Night Lights was heavily impacted by the writer's strike, as famously.
Infamously.
Although the murder plot was still going to happen, people, okay? That was already written down and ready to go before that strike. I did listen to Jesse Plemons talk about the murder plot, and he was saying, though, and it kind of goes into, like, how people wanted Landry to, like, still be affected by this murder, like, seasons later. But he was saying that, like, they, you know, there would be scenes that didn't have to do with the murder. And that they just wanted him to, like, act normal. Like, hanging out with his friends. Like, hanging out with Saracen. Like, he's still kind of being, like, jokey, funny Landry. And Jesse Plemons was like, I was trying to play that, like, you know, I was trying to be more serious in these scenes because, like, I'm dealing with this, that I murdered this guy and it's torturing me. And how can I be making jokes and acting normal? And they're like, no, we just want you to, like, do your...
Wow, Jesse Plemons trying to do the Lord's work.
Yeah. They were like, no, just do your shtick here, you know? Let's have some fun. But yeah, we did it. Our top abandoned storylines. Yes. Listeners, tell us some of your favorite abandoned storylines because there's nothing more I like to talk about than this.
I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface. There are so many more long lost children that we haven't talked about, so many more characters that just disappear off the canvas with, you know, no farewells.
No farewells. That's a good way to put it. They don't even get a goodbye.
No, they're just gone.
We built them up for 10 episodes and kick them on the way out. Yeah. No goodbye. But yeah, this is like one of my favorite things to talk about with these shows because I will say I think teen shows are kind of notorious for having abandoned storylines.
Yeah. They think that the kids aren't paying attention, but we are.
Yeah.
Especially today now when you have so many people who are watching or rewatching and then you have access to social media and you can pull up clips and you can pull up forums and you can comment. Like, I think you have to be really on your toes.
I do feel like this happens less now that we
Yeah.
only get like 8 or 10 episodes a season, and I kind of miss it. It's like that. It's like that. That meme that was going around of like, I miss like 27 episodes when Ryan Atwood played soccer one episode, and we never discussed
Never
that
mentioned it again.
or
Yeah.
anything.
Well, maybe next season there'll just be one less Walter boy for no reason.
I will say, I would guess that My Life with the Walter Boys will have the most abandoned storylines of the more recent teen shows.
I mean, they have like 37, so they could shed a few.
I was trying to think of like ones from newer shows, and I will say, like, well, it's harder too when these shows haven't ended yet.
Yeah.
So like, it's like The Summer I Turned Pretty, it hasn't ended.
Right.
So I don't know really. They could bring something back up. Like, we don't know, and we don't have an love child yet. So fingers crossed for season 3. So yeah, it was kind of harder to think about ones from today, but I think also it's because they film all of these in one go before they air too.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not getting fan response being like, I freaking hate this character, get them out of here. And then the writers are like, we got to get rid of this character, it's not working.
Yeah, they're doing the whole thing almost in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I guess is fine.
Good and bad. Pros and cons.
Yeah. Give me some bad storylines.
It's too much accountability.
Waste my time.
Yeah, waste my time.
Give me something to go on the forums about.
Yeah, exactly. Give me something to complain about. Come on. That's the fun of these shows. All right. Well, we did it. Thank you all so much for listening. Again, if you have some abandoned storylines that we did not touch on today that you want to let us know about, feel free to email us or DM us.
Do we have an email?
We do have an email previously on teentv@gmail.com.
Okay.
You can also DM us on the Instagram as well. But yeah, would love to hear from you.
Yeah, don't forget to like us, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We are also on social media, as Jillian mentioned, on TikTok and Instagram at previously on _teen TV.
Thanks for listening.